Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Anonymous, and this is an audio of her telling her story. And here we go.
Hey Ollie, hope all is going well with your life and that things are peaceful for you and your wife at this time of year. Just wanted to get something in your queue. I've been thinking about doing this for a while and started to write things down, but everything just seemed really complicated and confusing. I guess that's my life. So I guess even out of laziness, I decided to go ahead and record something for you. I've been listening to your channel, I don't know, probably about 6 to 8 months now. And I'd have to say that it's a really huge part of my healing journey. I've been exploring this whole idea of narcissistic abuse and that my parents and lots of other people in my life are narcissists and that I've been abused and gaslighted for the better part of my life. But you bring so much clarity to things. So I'm not feeling like rosy or anything, or everything's coming up roses in my life, or that I can look back at my parents and go, oh, gosh, and now I know they were these lovely people. I don't feel that, but I do feel clarity, and that is just this breath of fresh air. I can't tell you how much it means to me. I've been thinking.
You can't put a value on the clarity you get once you realize what narcissism is, the aspects of it, to be able to learn the vocabulary and the vernacular behind it, what gaslighting is, what enabling is, what flying monkeys are. Once you get that, that clarity gives you validation. And with that validation, you can find some sense of normalcy.
For the past couple weeks or month or so, I'm able to sit outside with my dog and enjoy looking at the birds, and without a thought in my head, just this huge weight has been lifted, and I think that comes from a big part of you. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for bringing honesty and transparency to us. I've been in therapy for a better part of my life, and I have to say that nobody's really been that transparent about it. I think that therapy is a lot about big thing about forgiveness, and I don't think they really know what they're talking about with that. But anyway,
Well, I'm not anti-therapy. I'm anti-bad therapist. And if a therapist doesn't understand cluster B disorders, a lot of them advertise that they do. They understand narcissism and borderline and cluster B disorders. They don't. A lot of them are narcissists themselves, and even more of them become infatuated with the stories and become immersed in them themselves. My issue with therapy is like, I tell everybody, I make it clear, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, I'm just somebody giving my opinion. So when you write into me, we're not going on a journey. We're not doing hard work. We're not going down this road. You're going to tell me what your background is. I'm going to give you my opinion of what the problem is. Good, bad, indifferent, that's how it goes. You don't usually get that from therapy. Plus, I'm going to draw off my personal experiences to make it relatable, to give you that validation. No therapist is going to do that. So that's a big difference. The other thing is, you with therapy, and I've said this a lot of times, is you get into 45 minutes, an hour, and then it's over. And then you usually end up feeling worse for 3 or 4 days after therapy than when you went in there. Because just as you're getting started on something, it's gone. It's over. Now what do you do with all these feelings? With this, you're talking about exactly what you want to talk about. You're talking about the issues you want addressed, and you have them addressed. Whereas a therapist, a lot of times, like, well, what do you think? And how does that make you feel? And it's not what I do here. People come for answers. I try to give you what I think the answer is. And again, my opinion.
Sort of a different topic. So thank you for helping us all. Um, it's really uncomfortable for me to talk about myself. I feel really self-conscious about it. I think it goes back to when I was a small child and my mother wouldn't talk to me so much as interrogate me. In fact, from a really early age, I called her talks the interrogations because she just had this list and litany of questions that she had to have answers for. It wasn't so much that she cared what the answers were, she just had to get them checked off in her head.
I grew up the same way. Every question is an accusation. Every every conversation is a trial and an interrogation. A trial that never ends. A trial that your guilt is already predetermined. A trial you can never win.
Um, and some of the questions were just really pointless and really weird, like she'd say, "Does your friend still like chocolate ice cream?" Or, "What did your teacher think of that sky today?"
Yeah, my mother used to say those are setup questions. Those are setup questions. They are setting. My mother used to play this fucking interrogation game with me. I just stopped answering. Or I just lie about everything because there was no right answer.
Stuff like I have no idea how to answer that. I remember even as a child, I tried to tell her what a conversation was. It was like this interaction between two people who would, ask questions and then talk about themselves. And I just didn't understand why she just didn't get it. Now I'm understanding more. It wasn't that she didn't get it. It was just a control tactic of her, and it was really triggering for me.
Plus, she didn't want you to have a basis of what a normal conversation is. It's the easiest way to get you to question everything and anything in your life. Every conversation you have, every relationship you have, every friendship you have, every interaction you have. Nothing is real. Nothing is right. Nothing is how you remember it. And it's all wrong. Everything you do is wrong. Whether you remember it that way, realize it or not, you're wrong.
So that even gave it bonus points on that. I think that both of my parents were narcissists of some sort. My mother, I think, was more covertly narcissist.
That's
She
not
enjoyed,
covert. When you get in somebody's face, that's overt narcissism. That's a woman in competition with her own daughter looking to control her life. That is not covert narcissism. That's overt narcissism.
playing the victim role a lot, I think. And I found out actually that she engaged in a whole lot of smear campaigning of me. She loved to write. My mother was a very good writer, and she wrote all the time. And sometimes it looked like she would write these letters to people and save copies of them, or they were first drafts or whatever. So I actually have written proof that she was smear campaigning me.
Yeah, my father's the letter writer. He liked writing my ex-in-laws and my therapist and me and my ex-wife. He loved to put things in. He loved to make threats in writing. Loved it.
Um, my father, it's a little harder to determine what kind of narcissist he was. He was more overtly narcissist, but the boxes just tick in a weird way for him. Um, I might even go so far as to say perhaps psychopathic, even slightly psychopathic, in that he just didn't seem to have a heart. Uh, at one point in his life, he left my mother and my brother and I, and we were just like failed science experiments, didn't work out, put him in the trash and move on. And he just didn't really seem to have much emotion about that at all.
That's more sociopathic than psychopathic. Psychopaths are, have this over the top behavior, whereas a sociopath can just leave you dead, leave you cold, and not care and not look back because it's all about them.
But I think that I'm going to talk mostly about my mother, since I spent most of my time with her anyway. My father was sort of detached from me. my whole life. Both of my parents have passed away. For me, though, the tapes still play in my head, and I'm trying to erase all that programming. Um, so I remember spending a lot of time with my mother from early on when I was a little child, and I think things were probably pretty good back then, because little tiny children are probably pretty easy to control, and that was my mother's thing. She wanted to control people and control me especially, and control people around her. So little kids are pretty easy, in that sense. I dressed the way she wanted me to dress, and I was cute, and the things that I said were cute, and I did the things that she wanted me to do. So, I wasn't really stepping outside of the bounds, and there wasn't really any issues. Um, my father was really disengaged from me, like I said, so no matter kind of what my mother did or said to me, he really just didn't get involved at all. Um, Starting around that was like the age of 3, starting around the age of 4 or 5, things just changed. I think I went to school, so maybe I had the influence of other kids or other families, so maybe in some way I started questioning things, so I probably.
Or your mother started, listen, things got really bad with me when I started going to school too. And I think it was the fear of you talking to your friends, and your mother's afraid that her little secret's going to get out, that she is a disengaged mother as well as your father, that she is abusive, that she is negligent. That's where all that interrogation and that and getting you to question everything about your interactions comes from. It comes from a fear of your mother being exposed.
Went from a golden child status to a scapegoat, and that's sort of when my mother started like this smothering way, and she always tried to trigger me. She really worked, I think, on trying to removing any sense of self that I had. She just wanted to control me, like I said, my thoughts, what I wore, what I liked, what I was going to do. Emotions were not okay around my mother. Feeling happy or joyful or angry or sad were just not okay. But, now as I'm kind of looking back, her feeling that way and her having emotions was okay, but just no one else in the family.
Because any type of sense of self or self-emotion or any of that is a threat to her. She sees it all as a lack of control, and if she can't control you, that means you can expose her for what she is.
She just would constantly throw doubt on my decision making and my skills. This continued through my adult life, and my mother passed away like 6 years ago, and I didn't really realize that she was narcissistic. I just always thought my whole life that she was right about everything, so I always thought my reactions to her attempts at control, that there was something wrong with me. I guess that was part of her gaslighting to make me feel like that I was defective.
That's the whole point.
She also invaded my boundaries in a physical way a lot, but not through violence. That wasn't part of my parents' way. Now, I don't think that they were physically violent because they didn't see a use for it. They were just really, they would call themselves intellectual elites, and beating children was something that lowlives and peasants did. So therefore, they weren't going to engage in that behavior, not because they didn't.
Again, they're better than everyone else. And that was the fear your mother had, that you were going to go out and prove to the world that they weren't better than everyone else, that she needs to control every aspect of you, even if that means making you look bad. As long as she could say, well, you know what, my daughter's got this, X, Y, and Z, and she's crazy, and she's this, and she's that. It's not on me, it's her. It's her. So pity me, this bright intellectual, okay, that has this dysfunctional daughter.
Believe that wasn't a way to treat a child. I think that if it had been in the upper echelons of society or whatever, they would have used that as well. So it wasn't about them. It wasn't about me. I mean, it was about them. But the way that my mother would physically violate my boundaries is, I remember when I was a little kid, and I would sit on her lap and we would play and, do games and stuff like that. But at some point I'd want to get up and she just wouldn't let me up. To me, it seemed like for hours. I don't know how long it really was. And I just remember feeling really claustrophobic about this and kind of scared. And she would kind of continue to tickle me and tease me, and I would be screaming to let me up, let me up, let me up. And sometimes I think my father got tired of me screaming or something, because I remember him sometimes in the background saying, let her up, leave her alone. But he never really got involved to enough to say, like, whoa, okay, you can't do this. This is no longer fun for her.
Right.
There's a haircut story in there for me. I remember I was like, I don't know, maybe 6 or something. And my mother, she, like I said, she loved to dress me up. She wanted me to wear like these little house on the prairie outfits, I remember. For my whole life, she would say, that looks so cute. I can't tell you how much I hate that phrase. But she...
So it sounds like your parents are probably boomers, and your mother was dressing you up like a toy, like a doll she wanted to control.
wanted me to have bangs. She just got it in her head that I should have bangs. And I remember one night she just started in on me. And that was her. It was almost like a child that she would do that, like a little kid who would beg for something and not let up. So she was there pestering me, pushing me. Oh, come on. It would look so cute. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. She kept like pushing me and pushing my buttons. And I kept saying no. This again seemed like it was for hours. I don't know how long it was. And another time I heard my father chime in, like, leave her alone. She doesn't want her hair cut. And my mother just wouldn't take no for an answer. Finally, I gave in, and she cut bangs on me, and I cried because I hated it. And so she laughed at me. She laughed at my crying. And, oh, I thought you do look so cute. I thought you would like that. No, I didn't like it. I told her that I didn't like it.
That's why she did it. That's why she's just a mean girl. She's just another mean girl in competition with her own daughter.
She also used to dress me up, I guess, as a little boy when I was a little kid. She cut my hair real short and she put me in little boy clothes. She thought that looked really cute. I don't know why. In my father's family, there's sort of a tradition of the women in his family have always had really long hair. I'm not sure where it came from, but it's just sort of been handed down. And I think my father was the one who said, "Why don't you let her hair grow long?" And to this day, I just have long hair and no bangs because I didn't like it. But I don't know what that whole dressing me up like a little boy thing was all about. I don't know. Maybe my mother had some weird understanding of sexuality. I don't know.
She was probably disappointed deep down because you were constantly pushing back on her and all. She probably thought a son would love his mother. Deep down, she probably wanted a son, so she can turn the son into a son husband, which she seemed like she was treating her daughter more like, see, mothers will turn their sons into son husbands, but they'll treat their daughters like possessions or toys and then compete with them and take out all their anger on them.
Oh, something around the age of, I don't know, 6 or 7. I'm calling it the uglification of me. You had brought up this concept, which I hadn't really thought about before, and you've talked about it in several videos, where mothers can actually resent or be jealous of their daughters. Or there might even be some hatred mixed in there for whatever their children represent to them that they weren't, or whatever. And I think I probably was a cute little kid, a cute little girl. All little kids are pretty cute, you know what I mean? So around the age of 6 or 7 or so, I gained an awful lot of weight. I got told I was fat by everybody in the family and lots of other people. That word right there, fat. You are fat. So yeah, no mistake in that. I think my mother, she stopped cooking for my brother and I around 6 or 7. We were kind of on our own, and I remember cooking my own meals when I was like 6 or 7 years old on the gas stove there. My mother loved Swanson TV dinners and SpaghettiOs and junk food, and I think she stored it up pretty well in the house. So, you know,
Well, no wonder you got fat, because that sounds like my brother's diet. See, my brother, he was 200 pounds before he was 9 years old. That's how big my brother was, because his diet consisted of TV dinners. I forgot about the SpaghettiOs. He did eat TV dinners, Swanson TV dinners, SpaghettiOs, tater tots, and chicken wings made in the Fry Daddy. I've talked about that 3 years going to school smelling like a chicken McNugget, because there was a layer of cooking grease on everything in the house, because that fucking Fry Daddy was going nonstop, was going 2-3 times a day with chicken wings, tater tots, French fries. My skin was all greasy. I started to break out because it was just full of oil. And you go to school smelling like a chicken fucking McNugget. Meanwhile, I went into high school my freshman year at 85 pounds. My brother was almost 200 pounds by 9 years old.
and I was overweight as a child, and there was no like, come on, as a family, let's eat healthier, let's make healthier choices. Maybe you should get some more exercise. Let's go on bike rides. Let's go on walks. No, nothing like that from my mother.
Sabotage.
The one thing she would do is, though, when we were over at people's houses or friends' houses and food would come out, she would look at me in front of everybody and go, "Now, remember your diet." She did that over and over again.
To make herself look like she was a caring mother. Your mother's the one who did it to you. Understand something. When you have an overweight kid, other adults look at the parent. You're not feeding yourself SpaghettiOs and Swanson TV dinners, although you said you remember yourself cooking. You're not buying them. You may be cooking it, but you sure as hell ain't buying it. She's doing all that.
And some of those instances were the first memories I have of the smirk, because I would get really angry with her. And I remember when we would get back home, I would tell her not to do that in front of other people, and don't say that in front of other people. Again, trying to be like an adult, explaining to her that that was my personal business and wasn't to be shared. And her reaction was weird. It was sort of like she kind of blew off what I was saying, and I remember the smirk and the smile, and she changed the subject, and oh well, and and then would repeatedly do it over and over again. The clothes that my mother bought for my brother and I were, bargain basement. They used to have factory seconds at that time, so like you'd have a pair of pants with one leg longer than the other, or a pair of pants with a zipper that never quite worked, so you find yourself out in public with your zipper always going down.
Yeah, my mother was famous for buying irregulars too. Not that she needed to. It was either the clearance racks or irregulars, because she thought she was getting over on everybody.
Or the cut would be just a little off, so it'd be uncomfortable. We had those, and I think my mother did find thrift stores at that time, and that's the way she dressed my brother and I. And also, clothes had to be too big so that you could grow into them. God forbid you'd have a pair of clothes that actually just fit you while you were going to school. I don't remember even like clothes shopping for school with my mother. Getting a few things, maybe, again, super big, or I think she just really wanted us to dress super weird, to sort of be outcasts. Now, I grew up in an area of New York called Gramercy Park, and a lot of really wealthy and affluent people lived in that area. My parents were, in fact, millionaires, so it's not like they couldn't afford to buy me just new and decent clothes that fit.
Or decent food. They're millionaires and they're feeding you SpaghettiOs and TV dinners. Boomers.
I know there's a lot of parents out there that don't have that kind of money, and gosh, you do what you can do, but also to buy the things that are 18 sizes too big. I remember one year I needed a coat. It was like Manhattan, so it's cold, and so I did go out shopping for a coat with my mother. We ended up in the women's adult section for the coats, and she decided upon a coat. It was like a women's trench coat, and an adult women's trench coat. I was like 8 years old. And I remember I had to roll the sleeves up on this thing like 4 times, and the belt went around my waist like 2 times. Um, and I wore it to school the next day, and of course I got
Made fun
ridiculed
of.
horrifically for wearing that coat.
And that's why she
And
did it. And that's why she did it. That's why she did it. My mother used to dress me in clothes that made me look fucking ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Too big, too small. It's just shit didn't match. She didn't care. She didn't care.
I think I told my mother that I got ridiculed, and she just kind of got offended by the fact that I would get ridiculed. Well, what's wrong with all those other kids? Or what's wrong with wearing a coat that's too big? She didn't really get it or didn't really care.
Oh, bullshit. She absolutely. Don't buy that. She got it. She was just trying to destroy you. She was trying to destroy you. She don't buy that for 1 second. She didn't get it. She absolutely got it. Did she wear clothes that were too big for her? Did she wear stuff that didn't fit her? Don't tell me she didn't get it.
I opted to go cold at that time. Um, Also, I had like really crooked teeth. I still do. Um,
They never,
just
so they're millionaires and they never got braces for your teeth, right? Competition. Trying to destroy you.
look looks bad in my opinion. I was really self-conscious about this as a little kid, and I remember when I was like 9 years old or 10 years old or so, I remember just, that's kind of the time you get braces, and I begged her for braces, and she just put her foot down and said no. My father didn't have any input. Like I said, he just maybe didn't care. My teeth were also really yellow. I don't think she pushed hygiene on me or brushing my teeth regularly. Um, she didn't really focus on hygiene for us a lot. I remember bathing sometimes. My hair was usually not brushed. Um, so you have this overweight kid with crooked yellow teeth who wears clothes that are ridiculously big for him, who's overweight. Just it certainly didn't help anything, if you know what I mean. Um, I think that something that my mother worked on was for me to not have any relationships, to try to hurt the relationships I did have. I guess that's part of the control. So, something that my mother did was she would be in public and she would fart super, super loud. And
Oh, this was my mother too. My mother would fart, burp, pick her fucking nose in public. She didn't care. She didn't care. She didn't care. She was such a goddamn She was such a fucking embarrassment to be around at all times. And that's just like when she's not generally talking and making a fucking asshole, making an asshole out of herself.
she would do this in front of my friends, and it was just mortifying to me. And My friends would laugh, but I was just horrified at this.
Remember, she's an intellectual and she's better than everyone else. Remember.
There was never any talk of like, oh gosh, I'm sorry, I have stomach problems or anything. Like, she just liked to do that to mess with us. So I learned to not bring friends around. My mother really encouraged my brother to belittle me, and he used to be able to just kind of ruthlessly tease me, and nothing was done about it. Now, I know with little kids, brothers and sisters will tease. It happens. It's sort of one of those things you do as responsible parents. You sort of work on your kids, one to like, hey, when people tease you, it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. And you work on the other one to say, like, teasing can be fun, but if you see somebody's getting upset about it, you need to pull back on it. It's sort of a learning experience. But I think my mother encouraged my brother to belittle me in front of people. I think she didn't want my brother and I to establish a relationship with each other. Probably because we might find some solidarity against her. She just wanted to keep us really separate and apart. Um, Something that you talk about, other people talk about, is you get these kind of family values lectures about blood being thicker than water or something like that. And I think in healthy families, those are probably some nice values to teach your kids, perhaps, or to look out for their older or younger sibling, not in a dysfunctional way, but a positive.
Blood is thicker than water doesn't exist. That is another boomer mantra. Okay, that is just a boomer gaslight. Blood is thicker than water. All it means is you need to be obedient to me because we're blood related. Bullshit. Bullshit. This isn't a mother. You didn't have a mother. You didn't have a father. Okay? DNA in blood doesn't make family. Behavior does. Behavior does.
Way. My family was the complete opposite. My parents never talked about any values of any sort. Uh, Never talked about, this is your brother and treat him kindly, and this is your sister, you need to treat her kindly, and, you know, never talked about any of that stuff at all. I had no concept of that. We weren't really a family, so we were just all kind of separate units, sort of biding our time, I guess, until we got out of there. Um, what's kind of weird, just another weird thought is how narcissists will sort of like infantilize and at the same time make kids really adult like at the same time. So my mother would infantilize me again by not trusting any decisions or judgments I made.
Right, but then they hold you to an adult standard. They treat you like an adult. They yell at you like an adult. They criticize your decisions as if you're an adult. You're not allowed to be a child. That's the problem with being raised by boomers. You weren't allowed to be a child. I was told this is from the time I was a little kid. Wow, he's like a little adult. Yeah, because I get the shit kicked out of me if I do otherwise.
Like anything that you would talk to my mother about, any stupid thing. I think I'm going to go to the store and get some whatever. And she would start in on that. Well, you don't really need to go to the store. Well, you don't want to use gas to drive. Well, driving can be dangerous going 2 blocks away. And why don't you use this instead? And instead of doing this, you get like every freaking decision like that, talking to her was like that. And it was just thoroughly exhausting. Let alone big decisions in somebody's life where she would start pounding on you to do something different. And that occurred throughout my entire life, that she treated me like that. But at the same time, like, adultify me by not cooking for me and not making sure that I bathed and not brushing like, you're on your own, kid, with this one. Like my brother and I, like I said, we grew up in Manhattan, and I was doing the city bus to school when I was like 7 years old. She went with me for a week and was like, you're on your own now. And my brother was on the subway when he was like 8 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I was walking to school in first grade at 5 years old. Alone. Alone. I was walking to school. I mean, with other friends, but we were little kids. We were just walking to school by ourselves. At 5 years old, it was crazy.
And kind of that way from then on. My mother hated driving, and she's like, figure it out. Grades was like another thing, like, this is for you, and I don't really care what they are, and you'll either want good grades or you won't want good grades, and just sort of dissociated from it. So that's like they infantilize and make you an adult. Being a child in my household was not okay. My parents didn't like children, they liked adult things. There was no like childlike, parts of our home set aside.
Yeah, like I said, you're not allowed to be a child when you're raised by boomers.
For children ways, no child projects or activities. We did do some family vacations, a few, and not geared towards children or child activities. They just didn't like children. Like, they like to sit around and listen to classical music and read the paper. That's what they like to do. Just kind of like a parting note, I apologize for this getting long. Now that it's the Christmas season, so my mother hated Christmas. She hates any kind of holiday. She hates any kind of commercialism. She hates anything where hated anything, sorry, past tense, where it'd be important to buy things for your kid, because I kind of grew up with this thing, probably had something to do with the clothes, is that for some reason I had to earn the school clothes, and whatever my brother and I did, we didn't do enough to earn them, so that's why we kind of got the bargain basement stuff. For whatever we did as children, there wasn't enough above and beyond to earn it. So Christmas was the same way. These things were not earned, so she hated participating it and giving it to us. And she did buy stuff. There'd be a few things that we did like that she'd get for us. But she didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want to hear about it. Again, no emotions or excitement or anything like that. And she just sort of resented it. And the whole day, it was not about togetherness. My brother would kind of get his little group of toys, and I'd get my little group of toys, and we'd sort of go off into our rooms and play by ourselves, because my parents just wanted to sit around and drink coffee and read the paper and didn't want to really interact or be bothered by us at all. So that's my parting few words on the Christmas spirit there. Again, I feel like my head's coming above water on this stuff. A lot, because I'm finally getting to understand what's going on. And again, thank you, Ollie, for helping us out. Man, I think you should get like your own radio station or something like that. I don't know how that would work, but you're really an inspiration to me too. The way you've done this channel is a super inspiration to me. Maybe I'll write later with stories about my daddy. Anyway, take care to you and your family.
Well, thank you for your kind words. But I'll say this. You learn the same lesson a lot of us learn being raised by boomers. You're not allowed to be a kid when you're raised by boomers, because it's all about them. It's either a competition with sexually, it's a competition for possessions, it's a competition for time. They're worried that you're going to expose them for their negligence. I mean, there are so many different layers of being raised by these people. But ultimately, in your case, and in my case, and a lot of other people's cases, you just weren't allowed to be a kid when you're raised by boomers. Can't state it any more simpler than that. So, I hope that helps. Thank you so much, Anonymous, for your contribution and your story. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to have a private video made, or you'd just like to make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance. And the queue is empty again, so anything with contribution will be immediate. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.